Um, I had some questions to our speakers here. I think I just wanted to ask two of these top two of two people in particular, and then go straight to the questions from the audience. I think, Susie, if I may ask you that top one first, because I think you have a global perspective and you've heard the speakers and seen the questions come through. But what changes have you seen over the last year about how Australia sees the issues of food waste? Are you seeing rapid change at the moment?
Thanks, Robin. It's such a good question. I sort of mentioned it a little bit in my presentation, but definitely we've got a generational shift at the minute going on in Australia. So we've actually got 6 generations living in Australia now, the first time that we've had that happen. And we are definitely seeing that Gen Z, the new generation that is now just finishing school and coming into the tertiary sector and into the workforce, they're definitely voting with their feet and looking for hospitality businesses that have clear transparency around their ESG. So while food waste is only one component of that matter, for today's forum, anything that can improve transparency of how waste is treated and the initiatives that businesses are taking towards food waste is going to resonate very well with those younger generations as they're coming through. Second comment is we study trends and through a food lens, and we have created what we call the Zumbo Effect. The Zumbo Effect is answering the question of how long, when something starts as an early adopter strategy, how long until it's mainstream. So we tracked a macaroon for that example of when a macaroon started as being a highbrow initiative available from Adriana Zumbo, only available to a few people, to it appearing on McDonald's counters. And that period of time, that Zumbo effect, is 5-year period. So again, from the restaurant sector, as you can see, the examples that I showed you, Parks, Stokehouse, these are sort of at the more elite end, Kylie Kwong, Neil Perry, those sorts of people. They're playing around with food waste now, maybe have been doing for 1 or 2 years. So we expect to see it becoming mainstream across the sector within the next 2 to 3 years based on that Zumbo effect.
Thank you. I mean, fascinating, and to see that from sort of, as you just say, a very exclusive good to mainstream in 5 years. I think we need to be seeing that change, not just at sort of Raquel's level with, your products, but with a lot more approaches to food waste. Let's go on through the questions rather than leaving with mine. Another question briefly for Susie. Do you know what brand of composter is in use at Brickworks?
I think Dave can probably, I did see that come up in the chat, but I knew it was a Wastemaster. So Dave can probably talk to the Brickworks thing a little bit more.
Thanks. David, you're on mute just for a moment. There we go.
Sorry, you're spot on there with Burwood Brickworks. And look, apart from our Wastemaster being in the basement there, they do have a fantastic culture there. The market garden and cafe and restaurant on the rooftop is brilliant. And as Susie mentioned, when Fraser's did start Burwood Brickworks, that was all part of getting the right businesses in there with the right intentions, and they have done a brilliant job. And we've expanded with Fraser's now into their 2 new shopping centres in Sydney, although they're not as they don't have market gardens and what have you. But
I noticed a couple of comments about the dehydrator from Enrich 360 and about the commercial composter from Closed Loop. But David, I know there's a lot of information obviously on your website, and I've seen the different sizes of your products. But what's the cost of a Wastemaster, and what is the end product? So what's the product that it makes?
Okay, so it uses very, very low heat, so low power. So that the residue that comes out is about 75–80% reduced. It's dry, but it still has 95% plus of the calorific and nutrient value. So it can be used, primarily we'd like to take it to an anaerobic digester, so that it's then a feedstock to produce biomethane and back into the electricity grid. That's not always the case in Australia, of being able to transport the residue. So then we work with composters or organic facilities to use it as a blend and a additive for compost.
Gotcha, thank you. And the costs, I know you've got different sizes, so can you access that information online or just contact you directly?
Yeah, contact me direct. I looked at a shopping centre today that was paying about $4.50 a tonne, and for general pickup and off to general waste and off to landfill, and I think we were just under 200 a tonne for the right model for them. So yeah, we can look at it. There is a cost saving, that's for sure.
Substantially by the sound of it. Thank you. There were a couple of questions there for Chris about getting the restaurants to do trainings, which I see Chris has answered there. The training was free, so it was an easier sell. And yes, that part of that was during COVID. And then there was a question about the promotion of the Sustainable Destination Partnership. Yes, lots of comments about how delicious the product looks. Raquel, you've got your first sales here. I'll just download the list of names. But as people have said, great to involve supermarkets in initiatives where we can. Have you seen particular sectors already saying, yep, we want some of these?
Yeah, well, look, we've seen a few different sectors get involved in the project. I think that now that we've been able to establish this drying capability, there are multiple industries around us that have got, an off waste product throughout their process. We've been able to work with barley producers that are off beer. So as a beer, as an off product there, we've got we're drying barley powder, which is really exciting for that industry. Look, we have probably been focused more on working with farming businesses rather than retailers at this point. The reason being is because, I mean, when you think about the scale that happens agriculturally on farms, there isn't a day that our farm, for example, doesn't plant something. So we plant every day to be able to harvest every day. So if there are 2 or 3 out of every 10 plants that we're not being able to harvest, that is a significant amount of loss to what innovation and new products that farmers are able to grow and to produce as well. So that's probably been where we've been focusing on. So for example, our first lot of production that we've had with the NutriV snacks, we've worked with partner farms across our Werribee South region to say, do you have seconds? What's your waste product looking like at the moment? And because it's a really dense growing region, we've been able to collaborate with 4 or 5 other farmers to actually use their products going into our snack food. So we've really been starting at the source with this sort of this initiative. I realise that there also is a significant problem that happens at the retail point of view as well as households, but one step at a time, and hopefully we're able to sort of broaden our reach as time goes on. But it is a big part of what we're doing.
And there's a question there, Raquel, about the packaging for those puffs. It looked like they were in soft plastic, but I didn't want to make any assumptions. Any thought about putting them in cardboard or other products?
Yeah, no, it's a really great question and something that we're very much alive to. It's a balance with our products, right? Because there's an element of the shelf life and stability that you need to maintain. So unfortunately, what we're seeing even in that cardboard space, and we've worked so heavily with Narrative from the Australian Institute of Packaging around different solutions here around, can we get something that's recyclable and cardboard that still maintains the integrity of the product, that is suitable for our infrastructure that we've got set up at the moment. And the plain and simple answer is that the innovation in packaging, unfortunately, isn't quite there yet to be used and dealt with effectively within our systems without contaminating them further. So if anybody does have any contacts or seeing any innovation in this space that works with our style of product, we'd be more than happy to work together on a solution or try to integrate and at least test it, because we realize that there's on-flow effects of that as well. So keen to continue innovating for sure.
Thank you. Good to hear. And David, there's a couple of questions there about what you can put into the Wastemaster system. One of them, what happens when non-food items go, and I know you had that sort of the yes you can and no you can't graphic up, but also, you know, can it take compostable packaging in New South Wales? I guess that depends on where the waste product is going. You're on mute again.
Yeah, I got that. Thank you. Most compostable packaging, the Wastemaster will take. Because the technology essentially takes the water content out of the food waste, there needs to be, it needs to be mixed with the food waste. So about 25–30% of what goes in. Although there's lots that we don't want it to go into the Wastemaster, it is pretty tolerant with what it can handle. Probably the worst is plastic bags, and some of the biodegradable plastic bags, because they just don't break down quick enough. They wrap around our paddles, and this just makes it inefficient. And then we need to, cut those out.
Gotcha. I think we are at the end of our questions there. Thank you for the note there for Raquel about talking to Caspac. They make a food-based packaging, and I know there have been great examples about, you know, for example, Nestle making the Kit Kat wrapper from 100% recycled plastic. I think that was only a small example, but Margaret Stewart at Nestle Oceania would have some good advice and happy to connect you. That is, good Lord, we're actually right on time. I'm very impressed. Can I say a very big thank you to everyone? Lizette, you have been sketching away frantically. Did you want to share anything before the end of the session?
I'm not able to share my screen because I've got a separate device, but I can see if I can hold it up, but there's nothing. It's going to need a little bit of coloring and designing before I share it, but you can expect it to be coming your way with some nice sketch notes happening.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the great pun. A lot of food for thought. I appreciate a good pun there. Thank you, everybody, very much indeed. Thank you to all of our speakers. I really appreciate your time. Susie, David, Chris, Raquel, Ed. It's been, you know, truly wonderful to speak, but also thank you for everybody who has joined us and made this a very interactive session. Great to hear from you all. We will make sure these recordings and Lizette's amazing drawings are available afterwards, as well as links to the PowerPoint presentations and the details within. As always, Better Building Finance is there to help finance these building upgrades and sustainable solutions. But happy International Day of Awareness on food loss and waste reduction. And thank you very much for joining us.
One last
Thanks,
thing,
everyone.
A massive thank you to the amazing Robin Mellon for moderating our fantastic little session. Well done, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.